It is 2 in the morning on the East Coast. Free agency is 2 days away. And the Vegas Golden Knights just lost a piece of their roster that nobody outside the organization thought they were ready to give up. The Florida Panthers announced they had acquired goaltender Akira Schmid from Vegas in exchange for a single third-round pick that will not even be used until the year 2028. On paper, it looks like a quiet, forgettable transaction buried under a mountain of qualifying offer news and free agency previews. Underneath that quiet headline is a much rougher story for the defending Western Conference champions, and it is one that nobody in Vegas wanted to wake up to this morning. Let's start with what Vegas actually gave away. Akira Schmid was not just a body in the crease last season. He started more games than any other Golden Knights goaltender, finishing the year with a record of 16 wins, 10 losses, and 6 overtime losses, along with a save percentage of .893 and a goals against average of .259. Those are not eye-popping numbers, but they are the numbers of a goaltender who carried real innings for a team that ultimately made it all the way to the Stanley Cup Final. Vegas trusted him with the bulk of the regular season workload, then turned to Carter Hart once the games stopped counting in the standings and started counting in banners. That decision worked out for one playoff run. It does not erase the fact that Schmid was a proven, capable insurance policy, and now that insurance policy belongs to a division rival who happens to be the two-time defending Stanley Cup champion. Here is where it gets worse for Vegas fans who are paying attention. The return for Schmid was not a young defenseman, not a roster player, not even a mid-round pick in next year's draft. It was a third-rounder, 2 full drafts away in 2028. That is the kind of asset teams trade for organizational depth, not the kind of asset you expect in return for a goaltender who just finished posting the most starts on a Cup Final roster. Vegas essentially decided that Schmid's value to them was so low that they were willing to let him walk for pennies on the dollar, right as the goaltending market around the league is about to get thinner and more expensive in free agency. And that decision did not happen in a vacuum. Just days earlier, Vegas had already traded away forward Pavel Dorofeyev, sending him to the New York Rangers in a deal that pulled real value off the roster up front. Dorofeyev was coming off back-to-back 35-goal caliber seasons, the kind of finishing threat that does not show up easily on the open market. Losing him already created a hole at forward. Now losing Schmid creates a second hole behind the bench, and Vegas is staring down 2 separate roster gasps less than 48 hours before free agency opens to the rest of the league. Think about what that actually means heading into Wednesday. The Golden Knights now have to walk into the opening hours of free agency needing scoring help up front and depth insurance in net, all while every other contending team in the league is also shopping the same shallow pool of available names. Reports out of Vegas already have the front office circling names like Patrick Lane, Evander Kane, Victor Arvidsson, Brock Boozer, and Oliver Bjorkstrand to try to patch the Dorofeyev hole. That is a reactive shopping list, not a proactive plan. And reactive shopping lists in free agency tend to get expensive fast once the market opens and prices start climbing in real time. Meanwhile, look at who benefits from all of this. The Florida Panthers, the same team that just won back-to-back Stanley Cups, entered Monday with genuinely nothing in net. Sergei Bobrovsky, Daniil Tarasov, and Louis Domingue were all about to become unrestricted free agents on Wednesday, which meant Florida had 0 goaltenders with real NHL experience locked up for next season. Bill Zito needed a body, and Vegas handed him a proven one for the cost of a paperweight pick. Zito even came out and called Schmid talented and athletic with poise in high-pressure moments, which is exactly the kind of language you use when you know you just got a discount on a player a division rival undervalued. This is the part that should actually worry Vegas fans the most. The Golden Knights are not some rebuilding club-hoarding picks for a future tier down. They are a win-now roster that just played in a Stanley Cup Final. Every asset that leaves that roster for cents on the dollar is an asset that makes the gap between Vegas and the top of the conference a little wider, right at the moment when the rest of the West is reloading around them. Before we get into what happens next for Vegas, if you are new here, hit that subscribe button. because we cover every trade, every contract, and every controversy across the entire league the moment it breaks, and you do not want to miss what comes out of free agency starting Wednesday. So why would Vegas do this? The most obvious answer is the salary cap. Schmid was about to become more expensive through arbitration, and after locking up other pieces of the roster, the front office may have decided that paying a backup goaltender real money was not where they wanted to spend limited cap space. That is a defensible hockey decision in a vacuum. But defensible decisions can still leave you thin, and right now, Vegas looks thin in exactly the two spots: scoring depth and goaltending depth, that contending teams cannot afford to be thin in heading into a new season. If you want to understand just how unusual this is, consider the timing. Teams do not usually give away a goaltender who just posted the most starts of any netminder on a cup final roster for almost nothing, unless they are either extremely confident in what is behind him, or they are scrambling to clear money before a bigger move. Vegas has not announced anything bigger yet. Right now, all fans have to look at is a thinner crease, a thinner forward group, and a front office that is going to need a very productive next 48 hours to make this offseason look anything other than a step backward. Now, here is the bigger question nobody in Vegas wants to answer out loud. Who is actually going to be Carter Hart's backup next season? The Golden Knights have not announced a replacement for Schmid, and with free agency about to open, every available veteran goaltender on the market is about to get a lot more expensive in a hurry. If Vegas waits even a few days, they could end up paying significantly more for a worse option than the one they just shipped to Florida for a single late-round pick. That is the kind of mistake that does not show up in a headline today, but shows up in the standings in February when the backup goaltender they scrambled to sign in July starts bleeding games they cannot afford to lose. And then there is the forward group. Losing Dorofeyev already strips away a proven finisher. The list of names being floated, Lane, Kane, Arvidsson, Bozer, Bjorkstrand, is a list of older veterans with inconsistent recent production, not a list of rising stars who fix a long-term problem. Signing one of them might patch a hole for a single season. It does not replace the kind of player Vegas just let walk out the door, and it does nothing to address the fact that the team's depth chart looks thinner today than it did a week ago. The uncomfortable truth here is that the Golden Knights spent the last several days subtracting talent from a roster that was already one win short of a championship, and so far they have very little to show for it beyond a single third-round pick that will not even matter until 2028. Free agency opens in less than 2 days. Vegas now has to prove in real time with everyone watching that giving up Schmid and Dorofeyev was part of a bigger plan, and not just a team quietly admitting it cannot afford to keep the roster that got it to the final in the first place. Carter Hart now walks into next season with zero proven insurance behind him. The forward group has a hole that nobody wants to be the one stuck filling on July 1st. And the Panthers, the same team Vegas now has to find a way to catch, just got stronger in net for the cost of almost nothing. That is not a small story buried under qualifying offer news. That is a defending conference champion quietly admitting they have real problems to solve, and the clock to solve them is already running out.